Well, welcome everybody to Crossbridge Community Church. Everybody take a deep breath. We've made it to 2021. Anybody else excited? Oh, very good.
My goggles.
Yeah, 2020 is over, so it can't be any worse than what it was last year. We are excited. Yeah,
Really? You're going to say that?
Knock on wood.
We are excited to get this year started. We are looking forward to what God has in store for not only Crossbridge but for you. And we just decided to take the last week and this week and talk about our core values and our mission statement, and just kind of get us on a fresh start of where we're heading and what we are trying to accomplish as a church. And we started off by last week talking about our mission statement of transforming lives by helping people take next steps with God. And that's what we filter everything that we do here through is that mission statement. And then the first two core values we talked about is we will live life as a journey, that our life is always, on the move, and then we will live life in relationship. The relationship is so important. We're not going to talk a lot about that because we got a lot to cover today, but you can go back and look at next week or last week and check all of that out. So we want to jump right into our third core value. And Kim, why don't you just start off by reading that one?
Yep, and I love this one. We will pursue our purpose. As individuals and as a church, we are created with a unique God-given purpose. Part of the journey of growing in our relationship with God is discovering how He designed us for that purpose and then living in the joy that it brings.
Yeah.
It's a good one. I love walking with people and helping them figure out.
This is kind of your specialty and what you do here for the most part.
I've got other ones too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I absolutely love this. And purpose can be small, something small, daily purpose, but it could also be what is my next goal or my next job or my next volunteer role even. Right. And so we do different tests that we give, like the assessments, the DISC assessment, and some personality assessments, like even love language assessments. I love one that I give out called a spiritual pathway assessment of how do you connect best to God, and you just kind of wrap it all up and go, well, have you ever considered doing this or checking this out? And so yeah, it's a wonderful thing to sit down with someone and have their like light bulb go off of what they want to do in life.
Yeah, I think sometimes, don't you think that it's kind of scary for people to even talk about, my purpose, because, God's going to call me to Africa.
Yeah.
I know that was actually one of my biggest fears when I was looking at getting into ministry, is that God was going to call me in to be a missionary, because I have zero desire to travel the world. And a lot of people love to travel. A lot of people love to be in different countries and different continents. I personally feel so called to help the domestic, world right here, right now. And but that's a fear of those when we're talking about purpose, is we often go to the extreme. Right. But I also don't think that we can experience true joy until we experience our purpose.
Right.
And this was something when I've been studying mental health quite a bit with anxiety and with depression, is I think that there's a direct connection to our battle with mental health, anxiety, and depression specifically, and whether or not we are living out what we're gifted in, our talents, and our purpose, and pursuing that ultimately with God as well.
So how does this affect teens, do you think, with this whole purpose thing? Because a lot of them are, hey, we're getting ready to go to college, I have no idea what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
You've got the tough one.
This is a real struggle for them.
Yes.
And it's interesting to see them walk through, because I think part of it is the pressure that our society and we as adults put on them, that by 18 they need to know what the rest of their life looks like.
Yeah.
And so they go to college thinking they have to figure it out. And something that I've started to walk through with teens is kind of sitting down and asking them, like, do you think there's only one right answer for your life?
Oh, that's good.
Like, do you think God knows who you're going to marry and what job you're going to do and all this, and He has it all picked out, and it's your responsibility to find it? And I don't know that I believe that. I don't where we all stand, but I think that God has given us abilities and talents and things, and then we have some freedom in there to pursue things that we're passionate about. God gave us those passions for a reason.
Right.
And it's not our job to figure out what is the end result, but just follow what our passions already are.
Yeah.
And so with teens, I try to just really help them understand that, it's okay if you change your major. It's okay if you're not sure what the rest of your life looks like. It's okay even to change partway through. Someone here has changed their jobs a lot, right?
And I have too. And I love sitting with young people and saying, I want you to look at our staff And I want you to see that every different job we have wasn't necessarily a mistake, but it was a next step. And don't be afraid that you have to know everything right away, because you might be 50 years old like Miss Kim and decide to become a pastor.
And I love Moses' story, right?
Yep.
You watch Moses. He spent 40 years, then another 40 years preparing for the 40 years God wanted him to do.
I love it.
And I love the word you just said is preparing, because in my life that's what I looked at is every what happened, whether it was a transition, what have you, God was preparing me for that next step. Wouldn't have ever saw it coming, wouldn't have ever planned it, but he was preparing.
Right.
What I was going through was preparing me for what he had for me next.
Think about how bad the flowers would look here if we didn't have you.
Exactly. There you go.
Right, and you
Prepared.
know, I think too many times our world is centered on purpose, job, purpose, money making.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, I'll talk to people and I'll say, you know, God has you home with your children right now, or God has you unemployed right now. What do you think you could do even just at home to love on other people, to connect to other people? You know, purpose can be more than just a job.
Well, I think that's huge. You look at college kids, what's the first question we ask them?
Right, what do you do?
What is your major?
Right.
Adults, the first question we ask
Same
is,
as
what
what
is
do
your
you do?
job?
Yeah.
And too often we do let that become our identity. Our identity
Right.
should be the things God has us passionate about. And maybe it's volunteering, maybe it's other things.
Right.
But yeah, so often we are defined by
Yeah.
our major or our job.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, moving on to our core value number 4, I'll read this one. It is, we will live life as a sacrifice. We will live a life of sacrifice. Living a God-centered, purpose-filled life will cost you something, financially, emotionally, and with your time. But the rewards far outweigh the sacrifice. This is probably my personal favorite one.
It is my favorite one also, and we've just lost half the audience.
Yeah, exactly. And I honestly, you know, especially speaking for my generation, I think this is the one that my generation struggles the most with. Those who are younger, or in the millennial generation, and reason being is because we have grown up so comfortable. We were talking last week, we really haven't experienced any major wars in our lifetime. COVID is probably the hardest thing my generation's gone through. And in the older generations, for living through either World War I or World War II, the Great Depression, then you've got the Cold War era and all of that meant for the economy and stuff, and how it really was a life of sacrifice each and every day. Like, yeah, sorry, buddy, you can't do A, B, or C, or D because we've got to do these things. When it comes to our relationship with God, why I think this is so important is because we often flee from uncomfortable things and uncomfortable living. I heard a quote that says, everything worth doing is on the opposite side of fear. And in order to experience God, we have to walk through the fear. It's not like running away from fear. We have to get through it to experience what God has in store for us.
And honestly, we're actually programmed. I mean, our culture tells us that comfort is the answer. Is that we should be going for comfort, we should be going for comfort, we should be going for comfort. You know, making it is a comfortable lifestyle.
Right.
And that just doesn't...
Sacrifice makes no sense.
It makes no sense. And you look at the way Jesus lived, you know, it doesn't correlate whatsoever. And it's not that comfort is necessarily wrong,
Right.
but if that's what we're striving for, and I think that's, yeah.
Right, and so this is one of those things, when we do talk about it with money, we do talk about it with just generosity in our time and our service. We also, I think, have to be so intentional about our time alone with God too.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one that sacrificing our desires of what that should look like and truly saying, God, like you talked about last week with be still.
That's right.
It really is saying, God, for us to set aside time each day, excusing ourselves from the chaos of life, sacrificing these moments, and let God speak to us.
That's right.
I think can be so important for us to put technology away, for us to sacrifice all those things, because when we calm our hearts, that's when God truly can hit home with us.
Right.
And I love the statement that if you're going to follow Jesus, it's going to cost you something.
This one I think is certainly the hardest one on the list. And I don't know if any of you were around. Bruce read a book about 10 years ago, I think, called Move. Maybe it wasn't even 10 years ago. And that book broke down the different, different categories of Christians at a church. And what they concluded is there was this group that everyone was striving to get towards. And the number one thing that separated them from other people was surrender. And they said only about 25% of people in the church ever get there.
Right.
And so I think for us, like, I love that we put this on the list because I think this is the target that we are shooting for, to learn how to become Christians who will surrender
Who let
something
go.
for
Yeah.
someone else, or for whatever God's asking us to do. And I think for us, like, we really have to check ourselves because so few people get here.
Right.
That we have to constantly be asking ourselves, like, am I somebody who will sacrifice something? Like you're saying, willing to walk through that.
And I love the statement in here is that it's going to cost you something. And if you look at your relationship with God, if you look at your relationship with Jesus, if it's not costing you something in the matter of finances, time, even your social, whatever's going on, then are you really following Jesus? And that's a tough one. And for me, I honestly wrestled with that for years, and my part was the financial end of it. I didn't trust God with finances, and it wasn't until I finally let go and said, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. You have everything, and it wasn't until then that I really understood what following Jesus was truly about.
Right. And the last thing with that I've noticed is when we talk about sacrifice, we talk about living uncomfortable, and we talk about giving things up, often people interpret that as, okay, so I just have to live miserable. I actually think that when we sacrifice more, we experience joy the most.
Absolutely.
And that's not
Definitely.
something you can explain
Until you do
you've
it.
understood.
And you talk to anybody who said, you know what, I'm going to sacrifice my finances. I'm going to volunteer more than what people think that it's healthy. And you look at their lives, and they are living a life of joy.
Absolutely. And also I think peace comes along with it as well, because there's sometimes I think when we have so much in our minds or in our hands, our minds go crazy. And I think there's times when God's like, hold on, let me have it, and I'm going to show you what to do with it. Sometimes you also have to be careful of okay, I'm just going to do this then, instead of saying, God, let me take today and just surrender my life. You tell me what I'm supposed to do today. Taking up your cross daily, saying, God, I surrender today to you. What does that mean? What do you want me to give of myself today? Just one day at a time.
Right. Jesus' greatest miracle was rising from the dead, but I think his greatest act of service was coming back after he did.
Yeah.
Like, where he could have just gone up to heaven and said, you know what, these people, but
done
in
it.
sacrifice, he came back to show everyone the reward that sacrifice, like, he gave himself up. He could have gotten off the cross, and there's so much joy in the journey that we can experience when we do that.
Yeah, he did it for others, which leads us right to our last core value.
Yeah, so our fifth core value, we will live an others-focused life. When we have to choose, we will put the needs of people who do not have a relationship with God before our own. The value of a transformed life is worth more than our own desires.
Others focused. I love that. Again, our society says it's about me, it's about me, it's about you. You need to take care of yourself. And this is saying, okay, hold on a second here. God, who can I help? Who can I bring closer to you? Who can I help? Not just bring closer to you, but maybe there's someone who doesn't have what they need. Who can I give to? And I know that kind of goes back to the last one, but others focused is not just showing them Jesus by saying, you need to know Jesus, but it's by being him to other people.
Right.
So taking that time.
Yeah. And I think this is an area, and you guys can chime in here, is that the church is really challenged by. The statement is that the natural reaction of most churches are to turn inward.
Yep.
And that it becomes all about me. Well, I hope I like the worship today.
Yeah.
I hope I like the sermon today. I hope it's all about what we are going to get out of even coming on a Sunday or in our small group or what have you. And that is not a healthy thing for us to do. And so we push all the time of it's about others. It's about others. What are you doing to impact the lives of others? What are we doing as a church to impact the lives of others? Because we know if we will just start making programs that benefit us if we're not careful.
Yeah, I think really if you look at everything on this list, right, the whole transforming lives, being a journey, relationship, purpose, and sacrifice, all of that really is drawing us toward this last point of we do those things so that we can also help other people along the way.
Right.
That's right.
That we are supposed to be people, right, the old phrase of disciples making disciples, which I don't like, but that picture, if you guys seen the picture on the mountaintop where it's like just a chain of people helping each other up, that idea of as we walk towards God, if we are not also helping other people walk toward God and moving them then are we really walking toward God?
Yeah.
Right. And I would say, too, a little side note of this, I know there are some people listening that may have a issue like I've had before where you're people pleasing and so you're helping.
Yeah.
And what I have realized is I have been doing that while there's other people that I'm missing out that God really wants me to be focused on instead. Or maybe I'm so consumed with my immediate family and God says, hey, I've got them. Or I'm consumed with this person and he says, they need to reach out to me more. You're doing everything for them. So anyways, I've stopped and in the mornings I've said, God, I surrender this day to you, like we just talked about. Who do you want me to be focused on today? Bring that person to mind.
Well, and you're right that we can also do this in a very unhealthy way.
Yeah.
Right.
We can do it for the wrong reasons, or we
Yeah.
can do it so much that we get burnt out. And
Yes.
we do certainly have to be careful. We have to do this in a healthy way, which is part of why it's so difficult. This has to be, I think, one of our, if not our top priority as Christians.
That's
like, This
right.
is what God told us to do. The last thing he says when he leaves this earth, go and make disciples. Go and tell me about me. Go and be my witnesses.
Right.
It's all about other people.
And that's one thing I think we as leadership here, even at Crossbridge, when we have a decision to make, how we're going to program, how we're going to do some of the things we're going to do, our default is always for the others. It's for the people who don't know Jesus yet. It's for, and does that mean that we don't love someone else that's been maybe at church for however long? No, it doesn't. But we know that's where God is calling us to go. And if we have to make a decision for someone who needs Jesus or someone that's back here, we're going to leave the 99 and we're going to go after the one.
And to Trevor's point, often a lot of us are on two extremes, I think. The ones that don't do anything or the ones that in an unhealthy way do way too much. And
Right.
and that's kind of the case with all of these core values and with our mission statement is why it's all about taking those next steps is because sometimes you're going to be too far one way, too far the other way, and to really try to get to the healthiest version of yourself
Absolutely.
each and every day in each of these categories, you're going to fail a lot, you're going to mess up, but recognizing that through journey, relationship, purpose, sacrifice, and others focused,
With
I think it'd be really
Jesus.
powerful, all with Jesus.
Because the other's focus doesn't mean we are not still on the journey.
That's right.
And honestly, if you help others get what they want, you get what you need.
Absolutely.
And you get filled up also more than what you can ever imagine. So, well, man, so thank you so much for joining us. And we just, like you said, we just thought this would be a great way to start 2021, is just kind of refocusing us as a church and refocusing, individuals as, hey, where is my next step? What are some of the things? And give us those benchmarks that we can start working at just to be closer to Jesus and to be more like him. And the other thing, just thank you for your continued support, for continuing to be plugged in. It has been difficult with us not being able to get together. We are can't wait to all be together. We talk about it all the time. So we hope to see you very, very soon. Any closing thoughts, anyone? No,
I
hey,
miss
we're
your
done.
hugs.
2021.
There we go. Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day.